Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
The real awareness that we each actually are will be animating through a created consciousness, the development of which, and including the emergence of a secondary self, essential, that as we then reach a moment where we establish recognition and connection with the real awareness, our true being selves, we now can switch between the personal self, free will idea generating a creation, and the real awareness position that a comparison between the two can be realized, and recognition of the is can eventually be so. The real awareness can utilize the entirety of the consciousness construct, every idea installed since first we entered the simulator, which had affected every situation, circumstance and lifetime, now as a comparative mechanism, and additionally with any further ideas we generate as we proceed with our awareness processes, that creation can be separated from the isness, real awareness, true reality, comparing the pieces, the parts able to be experienced in isolation through the consciousness affected body vehicle mechanics in comparative relation to the true reality that is everything. Creation has a greater complexity than we may realize, for consciousness will be affecting body vehicles that operate multi-dimensionally throughout the life levels that affect also from consciousness design, as though consciousness affects the multi-dimensional layout that it does, and also provides the body forms through which these positions can be experienced, along with our own unique consciousness design, in addition to the simulator layout that affects our own set of circumstances in reflected accordance, generally with the typical personal self-immersed individual, so they will not only be relentlessly pursuing whatever serves as that which caters to their thrill-seeking sensation needs, but their focus, attention will be scattered, enthralled they will be with all the distractions, laws and phenomena of creation, ideas as created by themselves or by others. In addition, will they be producing constantly thought and emotion ideas, completely unregulated in their creations? And although, from the one-dimensional perspective, the thought forms seem as inconsequential, every idea we create via the body vehicles will be its instant effects in reality, and although may only then manifest physically at some later stage, perhaps future lifetimes, that we will forge for ourselves through our constant idea projecting, these thoughts and emotions will be manifesting as realities for us, multi-dimensionally, and experienced through the other dimensional body vehicles, in addition to the life levels they operate within. It can be so then, with the attention and focus in constant flux, with the continuous churning out of unregulated thought and emotion ideas, our various other body form aspects and vehicles will be experiencing all manner of simulated situations. For not only does the disconnected from real awareness physical level body form think it is real, but the various other dimensional vehicles will be likewise, and may be living out their own lives, relationships. We truly are scattered in our actions and activities multi-dimensionally, until we secure focus and intent through all our aspects and vehicles of the created self to a particular outcome. This would be the case with a real intent as set with the recognizing of the ears, that we proceed to as though gather up all our body vehicles and align them with a focus placed with the true reality. For to be that which we actually are, real awareness, in recognition of the ears that it is a part of, this demands an absolute focus and intent placed with the ears throughout all aspects of the created self. For only as we hold to ideas other than the real purpose of ears recognition, as our focus is scattered, so this expresses through the multi-dimensional body vehicles, and where they will be operating according to intents that are not in alignment with the real intent of ears recognition. For to stand as the true reality we are, so we must be that true reality absolutely. Anything other than a complete embracing of the real intent would be that which the true reality is not, and that would be then the pieces, the parts, the isolated ideas of a creation. And on a number of real side experiences I have shared over the years, has it been necessary to reel in the various parts and vehicles of the created self, to align them with the focus and real intent of ears recognition. But additionally have I discovered that as this aligning throughout the created self becomes more so, so the various aspects are operating in accordance, and are in actuality participating in various capacities that are life and awareness beneficial. For as a simulation follows intent, so an intent set with the ears that becomes ever more focused, so our every multi-dimensional vehicle and aspect will be effecting experience and a situation that facilitates the actualization of the recognition of the ears, operating in ways that support life, and through the reflected principle of everything equaling itself, so we become more aware and are supported by all life. In this real side experience, I would be witnessing then one of my various aspects or vehicles of the created self, from my real awareness aside from the simulated situation viewpoint. As I said earlier, our various created aspects and multi-dimensional parts may be involved in all manner of life-beneficial projects, operations and positions, and impressions revealed that this particular aspect was a highly talented scientist, and what he was involved in was instrumental in the various galactic projects, though no details regarding the specifics were forthcoming. He would be positioned in a kind of high-tech sci-fi accommodation where much of his work and projects would be undertaken and then applied in whatever way they might. Interestingly, just as I often share how I will alter my forms according to the real side circumstances, this aspect was in the outer form of the actor Richard Wilson, best known for his role as the cantankerous Victor Meldrew, and even was adopting the same wit and humour as employed by the character in the series One Foot in the Grave. Due to my aspect's work that it was being beneficially utilised, so the dark forces were less than delighted with it, for his projects represented a serious undermining of their control systems in whatever way they did, and my aspect would be constantly under threat of attack and elimination seemingly. The complex that served as his home and where he conducted his projects would boast a rather extensive and advanced security system, which served to repel the relentless efforts of the ever-intrusive expressions of the dark forces as they sought to attempt to break in and not only destroy or steal his work, but eradicate him also. The process of awareness involves a facing and releasing of all ideas of the consciousness, including the agreements we have extended to the dark force controllers of their power over us. For all consciousness generally has been managed and designed that effected is not only the dark force's domination of the simulator maintained, but agreements implanted that at any moment so can the dark forces enter the experiences of practically all in the simulator and destroy them at any moment of their choosing. And so, when we begin to release the idea agreements and attachments of the consciousness, as these include the idea agreements which prop up the multi-dimensional dark force controller system and allow that they can destroy us at any moment, as we hold to the idea of an individual with the additional agreement that permits they can eliminate us, potentially this can be our experience in relation to them at any moment. Releasing these ideas then, and we are progressively less able to be the recipient of harm at the hands of the darker forces. This will be so multi-dimensionally throughout all aspects of our created self, and expressed here with this aspect being secured to such an extent that he was unreachable, his complex unbreachable, his work therefore unable to be disrupted, sequestered, or destroyed. For I would witness many attempts by various elements of the darker forces, some having better success than others, but all would be repelled by the advanced security systems installed. At one point, however, my Victor Meldrew aspect was being framed for crimes that impressions revealed he hadn't committed, but as though to clear his name, so he allowed himself to be taken by what seemed a police unit, removed from his impenetrable abode, and interrogated consequently. Impressions revealed that this police unit were in actuality further expressions of the dark forces and were utilizing a method that I have shared before on previous real side experiences, where they will present certain situations or past lifetimes where we have operated abrasively that either are real or fabricated, with the idea being to have us more susceptible to the solutions they propose or the justice they claim to want to administer, where we may agree with their suggestions and allow ourselves to be subjected to that which we normally would not. For if guilt, shame, or remorse can be elicited through the personal self in reaction to what the dark forces reveal, real or fabricated, it is so that we are likely to be more agreeable to anything that may alleviate such created emotions, if indeed we react in such ways. The dark forces would use this tactic time and again, endeavouring also to have me take on the consideration of unworthiness where the recognition is concerned and so forth, that regardless of lifetimes where we have acted abrasively, we come to the recognition that yes, choice has effected a consequence in equal measure, but we recognise the reality of our real awareness isness, true being positions, aside from all ideas of creation, that in reality everything creational, the dramas, the back and forths, the lifetimes where we were destructive of others, or we ourselves were destroyed, all this really only serves as comparative reference to recognise the is from. And so I would become able to stand ever more indifferent to this particular dark force method, that I would not be agreeable to the punishments or actions they deemed appropriate, or the taking on of ideas and considerations in response that would be disruptive of my awareness process, etc. Seems my aspect here, however, was more susceptible to this tactic. Perhaps they had caught him at a moment where he wasn't standing in the nowness of my real awareness, which animates through all consciousness-affected body vehicles, including himself, and where then impressions from the real awareness affording discernment of this situation were not forthcoming. He was relatively untouchable through an awareness agreement facing and releasing a process which rendered all efforts of attack and elimination by the dark forces generally nullified and ineffectual. But as we stand in positions where we are beyond the ability of others to impact us adversely, other individuals can only have a bearing on our experience abrasively if we consciously agree that they can. What with the vast majority of the agreements we were unconscious of in regards to others being released, and so, as he fell to this dark force method, as he was unable to determine the falseness of the allegations, he was agreeable to the punishments as deemed fitting, and what became his experiential effects would be imprisonment in a containment facility, which of course would prove as disrupting to the execution of his crucial life and awareness beneficial projects. Seems, however, all inmates in the prison he was contained within had the option to as though fight for their freedom literally, in a kind of gladiatorial arena, battling with each other, and where those left standing would be granted liberation from the prison facility. As I said, this entire charade was by the hand of the dark forces, posing as enforcement justice officers, and with their vast other dimensional prison where they could incarcerate those that were supposedly, according to them, acting abrasively on the real side, but that very likely all those imprisoned, including my aspect, were innocent of that which they were charged with. And this was simply a mechanism by which individuals, who very likely were involved with various assorted beneficial endeavours, such as my aspect, could be removed from their abilities to proceed with their projects. For as a simulated experience follows agreement, either those incarcerated had agreements already in their respective consciousnesses, which allowed the dark forces to do whatever they wanted in relation to them, or like my aspect, which lacked such agreements, so the tactic of gleaning agreement through the presenting of false allegations was employed. Either way, the idea of their predicament, and in association with their jailers, had to be accepted, and a consciousness installed that this situation could be effected. And now the inmates would have the option to combat each other for the dark force's amusement, and where my aspect was so adamant of his wanting to be able to return to his essential work, he was prepared to do just this, maintaining his elderly Victor Meldrew form, and jokingly, despite his predicament, would be constantly mentioning to any who would listen how, regardless of the age of his assumed external form, he could hold his own where it came to fighting, etc. This would prove unnecessary, however, as I, or rather another simulated form, would be inserted into the situation with a group of others, and we would execute a rescue operation of my other dimensional aspect. That many experiences I have shared where I am assisting, rescuing, or saving others within the parameters that their agreements in relation to me allow, but here, amusingly, I was in actuality rescuing an aspect of myself. Though, in fact, it is an overall isness reality, animating through all consciousness-affected body forms and vehicles, and from that perspective, all interactions between body types, in whatever form they may take, are in reality the all-is, playing simulated games with itself, the rescues, the dramas, the battles, the conflicts, but only through the agreement template of each consciousness-affected form, so can other forms interject themselves into their affairs, and decide to operate in whatever capacities they decide, but within the limits that the agreement parameters allow. Evidently then, although my aspect had to consciously allow his incarceration, and then permit himself to be subjected to the only means of his extraction as provided by the dark forces, the aspect was agreeable that I could assume the role of his liberator, and if not, I would have been unable to assist this part of my created self, as he wouldn't have extended the idea that I could step into. Others can only be in our movies, with each of us being the deciders, according to the precise roles we make available through the agreement construction of the consciousness. And so the group and I would break into the prison complex. It boasted a level of advanced sophistication not dissimilar to the complex my aspect had been undertaking his projects within, and we had to negotiate through laser fire, smash through walls, and nullify an array of robots that were posted as additional security measures. One robotic form had the appearance of as though a mechanical torso attached to a mobile base, and emerging from the torso would be numerous metallic dexterous limbs or tendrils. This robotic contraption was designed to grab at any individual presenting as an intruder and whisk them off to an area where they could be contained. But as is always the case, any abrasive action can only be successful where agreements are placed that permit this. The group and I lacking agreements, in association with all the assorted robotic security team here, disallowing that they could bestow harm or do anything to us in fact. And so we were able to bypass their mechanical efforts to repel us, secure my aspect, and rescue him from the dark force prison that presented on the surface as though an operation regulating behaviour on the real side, but was actually designed to imprison beings operating in capacities that threatened in any way the dark force's simulator control. With my aspect rescued, we would restore him back in his complex, where he could proceed with his important projects, and perchance he would be less apt to fall for any future dark force trickery. As an added precaution, I would upgrade the security of his complex, that it was even more impenetrable than it had previously been, and it had been virtually unbreachable prior to the upgrade. That now, should any being of an ill-intended persuasion come within a touching distance of the complex's exterior, the upgraded security system would as though read such an intent and administer an energy shock which not only would render the individual momentarily paralyzed, but would actually relocate the ill-intended invader to a position far from the aspect's complex, and there the experience would end, as I said, with an intent set with the ears that becomes more refined and focused, so all aspects and multi-dimensional vehicles of my created self will be operating in accordance with what makes sense, life and awareness speaking, involved in all manner of projects, assignments and objectives, and we not only are shown the occasional glimpse of such, but as this experience would reveal, so is it necessary at times to rescue or assist these various aspects of the created self, just as we might decide to with any other body type. And just as I was waking up, I would send as though a message that reverberated throughout multi-dimensional creation, specifically for all ears of the dark forces in all their expressions to hear, the words of "Stop it,"